So happy to be here, finally living with no fear. I'm living my best year, so glad I didn't give up in last year. I'm happy that you're here too, so happy to be with you. Glad that you made it through, I saw that you made it through. I'm happy to be here, I'm finally living with no fear. I'm living my best year, so glad I didn't give up in last year. I'm happy that you're here too, so happy to be with you. So glad that you made it through, I saw that you made it through. I don't know if you hear it enough, but I want you to know that this song is about you. I'm saying you're more than enough. If you looked at yourself, you would be fucking proud of you. Get that weight off your chest, let it go, let it flow. Let it roll off your shoulders. Don't be scared to be loud, to be proud, to be bold, to be more than they told ya. It's like jumping out of airplanes and swimming with the sharks. That existential feeling when you're staring at the stars. There's a hurricane in my head, but the lightning in my heart makes it worth it. Yeah, I still get nervous when you drop in the stream and you check out this life is. Yeah, it feels like the very first time I can build with you forever. I am certain, yeah, cause I still get nervous when we all get the point in the fireworks, flossing the sparks through the air like the 4th of July. I can build with you forever, I am certain, yeah, cause I still get nervous. So happy to be here, finally living with no fear. I'm living my best year, so glad I didn't give up in last year. I'm happy that you're here too, so happy to be with you. Glad that you made it through, I saw that you made it through. I don't know if you hear it enough, but I want you to know that this song is about you. I'm saying you're more than enough. If you looked at yourself, you would be fucking proud of you. Get that weight off your chest, let it go, let it flow. Let it roll off your shoulders. Don't be scared to be loud, to be proud, to be bold, to be more than they told you. It's like flying in the fast lane, no headlights in the dark. That existential feeling makes you wonder who you are. There's a wild wind in my head, but the butterflies in my heart makes it worth it. Cause I still get nervous when you drop in the stream and you check out this life. And yeah, it feels like the very first time I can build with you forever. I am certain, yeah. Cause I still get nervous when we all get the point in the fireworks, flashing and sparks through the air like the 4th of July. I can build with you forever, I am certain, yeah. Cause I still get nervous. Hey. Cause I still get nervous. Hey. Cause I still get nervous. Cause I still get nervous. Cause I still
Welcome in, everybody, on this beautiful Wednesday. Well, it's beautiful for me. It's beautiful for me. Welcome in on this beautiful Wednesday, and I say it's beautiful for me because it's been absolutely freezing cold here here in Alabama over the past few weeks, and we're just starting to warm up. Like, who would have thought I'd be grateful for the 50s, and like that's where we are this week. But man, hey, it's Wednesday. How are you doing today? How are you feeling? On Wednesdays, I typically spend my day writing. So I'm writing my scripts for the week, my Monday through Friday content, and typically creating my outlines that are going to be for my Sunday content. And then I'll come and spend my Saturdays on building that out a little bit more. 45 in Denver, man. So yeah, that's still better than it was last week here. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for 45. And so, but I've also just smack dab in the middle of these Wednesdays decided to start doing these kind of live conversations where I'm just kind of talking a little bit off the cuff. I do have some notes, but it's just stuff from me, right? And so in today's conversation, I'm not gonna lie, I love this thumbnail for today, but living in reality after believing in God. Because that was a real thing for me. There were 7 real questions that I had to face after faith, face after leaving the faith, after deconverting, after deconstructing. There were a lot of things about my life, and I guess that's one of the things that drives my content is that it for me my relationship with religion, the biggest regret I have from my relationship with religion is not necessarily what I believed. That's not my biggest regret. I mean, that's definitely up there. But my biggest regret is not what I believed. My biggest regret is what I didn't believe. My biggest regret is what I didn't believe about myself. My biggest regrets revolve around what I didn't believe that I could do, what I didn't even try. My biggest regrets had very little to do with religion itself. Religion was just it was kind of like I hate to use a religious reference, but it was kind of like the scales falling off the eyes. The scales fall. I'm no longer blind, but now there's this whole reality that I have to deal with. And that's where, we're in this series now for Sunday sessions called Falling in Love with Reason. And that's what I had to learn how to do over the past decade is how to fall in love with reason, how to reorient myself with reason. And honestly, I don't know if you can tell, but it's worked out fairly well for me. When I deconverted, I was over 580 pounds, man. Like, ooh. And like, it wasn't like I stopped believing in Jesus and all of a sudden, just stop eating so much. It didn't really work that way. But because I was deconverting, because I was deconstructing, I was challenging the way I engaged life in all areas of my life, not just in what some people relegate to just the spiritual. It wasn't just about, okay, well, I had these beliefs about of how the world started, and I had these beliefs about these spiritual things, and I had these beliefs about a possible heaven or a possible hell, and I had these beliefs about Jesus maybe returning and stuff like that. But it's just like, if you, and I have to say it like I said, if you believe in bullshit, like there really isn't a concrete line of where you stop believing in bullshit, right? So like if you again, I'm gonna use a religious reference here. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. No, if you believe a little bullshit, you probably believe a lot of bullshit. And that's probably not compartmentalized into just religion. While it likely doesn't overflow into everything you do, it maybe doesn't permeate every single thing you do. It likely doesn't just stop with religion. And that's what I've noticed is like, man, I had a lot of superstitions about my religious beliefs, a lot of superstitions about about my relationships, a lot of superstitions about my finances, a lot of superstitions about me and just how I showed up in the world as a person. And that was the wrestle, that was the struggle, and that was the realization of realizing that, hey, dude, you spent you spent nearly 3 decades of your life not engaging the world as it is. So before we move on and just jump to the next thing, we need to unpack all the areas where, and this was what I did for me. We need to unpack all of the areas that you can identify, and it's not like, I'm going to obsess over it, but I do want to unpack all of the areas that I can identify where I've likely fallen into the same trap, where I am likely operating off of information that's not verified, or even worse, just not even operating on information at all. And so that's where I started. That's where I started at over a decade ago, is looking at my life again, even with just, you know, my nutrition, and when I say nutrition, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that like I eat what some people would call healthy. I don't really exist in those paradigms. But nutrition in the sense of just being more mindful of how I ate, why I ate, when I ate, you know what I'm saying? And it became like, oh yeah, like dang D, because like you eating like you were praying, bruh. Like there are cause and effect things that are going on here that you're no longer attached to. So there were 7 questions that I had to face, that I had to deal with after I deconverted, after leaving the faith, that helped me kind of regulate my life. And before we jump into my questions, the questions that I had to face, I have a question for you. How do you regulate your life? How do you orient now? What frameworks do you live by, if any? How do you deal with reality now that you no longer believe? How do you live in reality now that you no longer believe in God? You know, or maybe you still believe in something that you would call a God. How do you approach your life in reality? How do you deal with it? How do you reorient it? Because for me, like you got to understand, this was a shift in the way I approached everything up until the moment I was 28. From the time I was a child, middle school is when I got saved and active. From the time I was a child, my framework for living was walk by faith. Come on now, not by sight. My framework for living was the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. My framework for living was lean not into thine own understanding, but in all thine ways acknowledge him. My framework was living was I decrease so he increases. So my whole approach to life, and I'm just talking about me, my whole approach to life in that paradigm was I have to listen for God's will, and sometimes that will is hidden either in the scripture, or for whatever reason this tricky motherfucker likes to use signs because he can't talk. Why does God always have to speak in sign language? Okay. So God is always, I'm always trying to figure out, what does God want, you know and what will God get out of this? How will God get the glory out of this? And if that's how you live, hey, that's on you. I'm just talking about how it impacted me. And because I was doing that, I was completely disconnected from several things that are absolutely vital. Number one, what the fuck do I want? That matters. That matters. But can you imagine living for 28, nearly 28 years of your life, trying to fit what you want, or trying to align what you want into the image of an imaginary God who you cannot hear, who does not speak to you? It's just horrible. And so, but then, so number one, what do I want? Like, what do I want out of life? And getting free about being honest with myself about it. Like, I don't owe anybody any apologies for what I want. I don't have to ask anybody's permission for what I want. Number one, I don't even got it yet. You know what I'm saying? I don't even got it. I don't have it. Like, why do I have to be apologetic for what I want? Well, that might be your pride. It is. And well, Darante, don't you think that might be your ego that wants that? It is. Absolutely is my ego that wants that. That's why I want it, because it's my ego that wants it. Your ego don't want it, and that's good for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to get to the place, number one, what do I want? Giving myself that permission to giving myself that permission to like be free, to be like, no, I want what I want. I used to, when I was first deconverting, I was still counseling people, not letting them know that I wasn't a believer. But one of the things that I would counsel them to do was to just, I call pouring it all out on the table. Just pour all of you out on the table. Like just get as much of you on the table as possible. Write like as much it's a social experience, more of a psychological experiment, but it's still social. But you get everything about you on the table, your likes, your good, the things that you don't like. You get and you just you put it all out there without fear of judgment, with no positive values, no negative values, just you, all of yourself out on the table, your good self, your bad self, your freaky self, your naughty self, your nice self, your nasty self, all of that, put it on the table. And then you determine how you feel about it without letting the other voices in your head that you've let live for too long make the decision. And man, I promise you, number one, it can be an emotionally disorienting exercise, because for everything you ask, do I like this or do I not? After you get it on the table, right? Everything you ask, you have to ask yourself, now, is that me saying I don't like that? Or is that my Auntie Sherry? Is that me saying I don't like that? Or is that my Uncle Jojo? Is that me saying that I don't like that? Or is just that every woman in my family says they don't like that? Is that just me saying that? Or is that just how all the Martin men approach it? You know what I'm saying? It's almost like doing an exorcism on yourself. You kicking everybody out, like whose voice is not yours, and making your voice central until you're oriented enough to make room for other voices. If that makes sense, you know what I'm saying? So the first is, what do I like? What do I like? But then also the second thing is, what does this do? How does this even help? What does A plus B end up being in this scenario? You know, just completely disconnected from cause and effect. So, my question to you is, how do you orient yourself now without a faith system, without a belief system, even if you consider yourself still spiritual, you just don't do traditional religion? Okay, then I'll talk to you too. How do you orient? How do you live life now without a belief system? How do you approach life? Do you find yourself just floating now? Which that's okay, because I mean, like in reality, we all just floating on this space rock, you know. So do you consider yourself just floating along right now? Or have you been able to find some bit of intention? Have you been able to reclaim some purpose? Have you been able to define meaning in your existence, your reasoning for being here? Have you found any of that? For me, I have, because one of the first questions that I wrestled with when I was deconverting was, how much of the preacher was me and how much of it was Christianity? And I was able to very quickly identify, oh, the preacher is me. That's been me ever since I got here. That's a part of my personality. You know what I'm saying? It's no different than a comedian in many ways, you know, social commentary. That's all it is at the end of the day. All right. So I'm going to give you the 7 questions that I started dealing with for myself once I deconverted. These questions were very helpful for me. Very helpful for me. Okay. And this was how I grounded myself. And I'll trace it back to me first dealing with my eating habits, right? I remember sitting in my kitchen table. We were living in Anniston, Alabama at the time. And I was sitting at my kitchen table around breakfast time. And then I said, you know, I remember asking my wife, like, hey, why do we eat? Like, not we as our family, but why do we as living things eat? And I realized, like, this was a foreign conversation in my mind. This was not a conversation that I had entertained prior to that moment. Like, it was not a conversation that I had ever placed any importance on. Why do we eat? And that put me in a very uncomfortable place with myself. Now, I'm not saying you got to do this. I'm just telling my story, right? That put me in an uncomfortable place, because then I was like, when I had to unpack that meant, okay, so I eat because I eat out of reflex. Oh, there it is. I eat out of reflex. That's what I realized about myself. Like, oh, there is no reason or rationale that is attached to my eating. And so I was like, I eat no differently than just like an animal. And I get it, we animals too, but like, no, I just eat because food there. Because I smell it, I see it, I can taste it, I can touch it. It's there. Let's eat. Why? I mean, it's here. It's here. It smells good. Why not eat it? And then I realized, like, Darante, the same way you've been engaging religion is kind of how you've been engaging your diet, your nutrition. There's no critical thinking attached to it. And why not attach some critical thinking to it? And so I asked, okay, so why do we eat? And then I realized, oh, I eat out of reflex, but like eating actually feels a biological need. You know, like there's a biological component to this. It's not just, oh, I eat food, I feel good. It's not just emotional. It's not just experience. Which, by the way, those are the two reasons I eat today. I eat for energy and I eat for experience. Oh no, that's a nice experience. No, I enjoy the experience of eating something new, or just eating something tasty. Man, you make it colorful, I'm all in there, But the answer to the question was like, no, we eat for energy. We need energy to live. We need energy to persist. So, food gives us energy. Yeah. All right. So then, what does it mean if we're eating to the point of not being able to use the energy? I'm like, what? In my community, in my culture, we call it the itis. You eat to the point where you got to unzip your pants and sit down somewhere for you hurt yourself. Type eating where as soon as you're done, like you got both hands on your back trying to support your new belly weight because you done ate so much. I was like, no, if we eat for energy, why am I eating to the point where my energy is depleted? If we eat for it, it's like, and like we can get into some poverty stuff here, right? Because for me, it was a poverty reflex. Because then I wasn't eating for energy, I was eating for hibernation. Does that make sense? I wasn't eating for energy, I was eating for hibernation. Watch this. I was eating for hard times. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I know I got to make sure I got something for later. Eating for hibernation, which is why I was walking around here looking like a big old bear. Now, listen, if you walking around here looking like a big old bear and you love it, I love it for you. Not me. Especially when I realized that it was a product of me not engaging that area of my life intentionally. Because if I had been engaging that area of my life intentionally, then I could have put a do not pass go standard on myself. This is okay. This is the furthest we can go. This is the first. Now, if you starting to get tired when you're eating, you done ate too damn much. Okay, that's how I start talking to myself. But that's just engaging reasoning. All right. So all of that came out of 7 questions. How long did it take me to get to these damn questions? 23 minutes. All of that came out of 7 questions that I started asking myself that I had to face after faith. And the first one was, is my approach to life based in evidence? And I'm going to spend a little time on these. I'm going to go through them first real quick, but I'm going to spend a little time on them. The first one was, is my approach to life based in evidence? Is my approach to life based in reason? Because a lot of things that I held to be true, a lot of things that I held to be valuable, a lot of things that I held to be of substance were anecdotal at best. And that's really easy if you come from the Southern culture. And I'm not saying it's not easy in other cultures too. I'm just saying I know for a fact that it's easy in Southern culture because we're kind of taught to live by sayings down here. Oh my goodness, we love quotes in the South. Oh, a good quote, a good saying, and the saying becomes rules to live by. just good old country folk wisdom, you know? And so I had to look at my life and it's like, oh man, how many places am I approaching my life based off of anecdotes and not evidence? Because it's not just my religion. It can't be. I mean, it could be, but the probability of it being is not very, is actually very low. So is my approach to life based in evidence? Is my response to life based in evidence and reason? Am I skewing my perspective, negative or positive? This is what people ask me today, like, Darante, do you consider yourself an optimist or a pessimist? Like, why do I have to be one of those? Why can't I just be a realist? Like, why is there a requirement of me to be skewed in one direction of the other? As a realist, if it's a bad day, I can just say it's a bad day. I don't have to find a reason to make it a better day. No, it's a bad day. If it's a good day, you know what I'm saying? I can just call it a good day. I don't have to find something to make it a bad day so I can feel good as a pessimist. I'm just a realist in that sense. Next question, am I clearly looking at the world as it is, not as I think it should be? And that was one of the hardest ones for me to deal with. Like, I think that one popped up in 2017 and stayed with me. Like, I was still working on that one all the way through to 2024. Am I clearly looking at the world as it is, not as I think it should be? Because that's one of those things that that's kind of some of that residue of belief. One of the things we take for granted is that when you're a part of a belief system, you believe that somebody else is in control for so long. You believe somebody else is in control for so long that you create these fantasies about the world that aren't true. And they can. I'll use one that we all know. What goes around comes around. Oh, they're gonna get theirs. Whatever you sow, that shall you also reap. Okay. Not if somebody else comes steal it, which we've seen happen over and over again. What goes around comes around. Not if you don't bring it back around, it won't. And so there are these maxims. Like, I started, oh man, thank you so much. I used to start talk to people about magical words. Like, that was a thing. Like, I deconstructed magical words before actually deconstructing. I was one of those preachers I didn't believe in curse words. Like, that was just very weird for me, especially the way we apply the way we apply it in the West, because it's like, words like shit is a cuss word in the West. It's like, oh, that's a cuss word, but shoot is not. And the definitions is absolutely the same. All we changed is the syllables. So I deconstruct, like, I don't believe in magical words. But like, I took that a step further, which means I don't believe in curse words, but I also don't believe in like magical words that just give you magical access. And like, we actually kind of I like that. Oh shoot, oh darn. I like that. Dang it. That tickled me too much, man. But the big point is looking at the world as it is, not as you think it should be. Because for me, the way I think it should be wasn't really even based in reason. It was still based in the residue of religion. I think the world should be this way because I believe there should be somebody who's in control of everybody, and that's my video that's coming out tomorrow on the channel. Holy, if you're a member, you already have access to it. If you're a Patreon, you already have access to it. But tomorrow, in tomorrow's video, we're going there because ultimately it's like one of the beliefs that you kind of have to break is this belief in this, for me, is this belief in a supreme God. And because that's the biggest residue, the residue from belief in a supreme God is somebody else is in control. It's somebody else's thing, and somebody else is going to make sure everything goes just right. And so then you end up incredibly disappointed when things don't go just right. You're upset, you're crying, you're depressed, you're anxious, and you're like, why are there so many things going wrong? And then one day I was in one of those fits, like, why is there so much wrong with the world? And it was like, dude, chill. You're actually being superstitious right now. And I was like, what? How am I being superstitious? Because you're expecting there not to be so much wrong in the world. Where did you get the reason to come to that conclusion? Whoa. Dang, you're right. I no longer have an Eden, a garden of paradise that I can say at one point humanity had it all together. And then we somehow just started getting worse and worse. I don't have that anymore. So I had to learn how to look at the world as it is, not as I think it should be, because I don't get to superimpose my supremacist ideologies on the world, which is exactly what that is. The moment that's what should is. When you say the world should operate this way, you're making a decision for 8 billion planets and everything else. 8 billion people and everything else. It's like, oh no, there isn't a should. There's an is. This is how the world is. Jalapeno. Yes, indeed. I didn't plan on preaching today, but damn it, I guess I'm here. No, there isn't there. Well, the world should operate this. According to who? According to what? Who would you trust with that much power? Who would you trust with that much perspective to be able to determine how the entire world should operate? That is the simplicity of superstition. Superstition has made it easier for us to oversimplify complexity and call it certainty. When I just know the world, I don't know what you know. I don't know. Let me see. I get this question a lot. How do you explain ghost or demonic possessions if you don't believe in an afterlife? I'm going to give you something, and this is what I tell everybody who's on their deconstruction journey. Your first stop on your deconstruction journey should be critical thinking classes. They are freely available on the internet. Listen, y'all, I know y'all love the deconstruction content. I make deconstruction content, so I'm saying this at my own peril. But please do more than just watch anti-Bible content. The problem is not the Bible. The problem is your ability to approach life rationally. Nobody should have to explain ghost because there are no evidence for ghost. That's the thing. I can't explain something that doesn't exist. Do you see the problem with that? So your question should start in the affirmative. How do I know ghosts are real? Not how do I explain everybody that could be lying about ghosts? Because that's where the simplest explanation goes to. What do we say about ghosts? People are deceived often, easily. How, to me, and I'm not mad at you for asking that, I promise you, it frustrates me that that's where humanity is, though. Is that no. So now any lie, any story that somebody make up, we got to find a way to defend it. Why? Are we that confused that we don't know that people lie, pretend, and are easily deceived? So now the question is, I'm gonna give you the perfect way to approach it. Again, my advice still stands: critical thinking skills. Take critical thinking classes. Find them. They are free. There's an organization called the schoolofthought.org. And that is literally all they do. If there is any organization that I want to partner with, it's the schoolofthought.org. Holy crap, they're awesome. The work they're doing is incredible because what they're providing are critical thinking resources, you know? So, and this again, for anybody who's deconstructing, identify the root of the reason you're having to deconstruct. I've shared this on my channel several times. The first thing I realized when I came to the conclusion that my religion was false was that, Darante, you have a problem believing in bullshit, and you need to find a way to counter that. That's your best option, is to take those critical thinking, take some critical thinking classes, learn how to sharpen that tool. That's going to be your best friends. That's going to be your best friend, because then if you've already debunked Jesus, you've already debunked ghosts. You know, like all of the stories have the same problem. There is no evidence. They all rely on personal anecdote. You know, they all rely on incredulity. They don't meet the standard of evidence in the first place. It's one of the things I often remind people about Christianity. Christianity says, well, the reason you know Jesus is the Son of God is because he rose from the dead. There's several problems with that. Number one, who determined that that's a qualifier? Where is that established? How is that established? In that case, then every story that's about anybody coming from the dead is a story that qualifies them to be equally considered the Son of God. But we can't even get there if we can't even figure out where we got that standard from. But it's even worse than that. You can't even make that standard if you have not first demonstrated that there actually is a God. So it's just a slippery slope in the wrong direction. Years ago, when I was still a very young minister, I think I just graduated high school. I was roommates with a guy who's the son of a megachurch pastor, and we were wanting to go to these like really big revival events because I was a revivalist. That's what I loved when I first got started. And this is going to tie into the ghost thing and the afterlife. And so the things that were happening at these events were like, oh, amazing. Like just, whew. Like you'd hear about like gold dust coming from the ceilings. You'd hear about rubies appearing in people's hands. And then you'd hear about like people getting gold teeth in their mouth. I don't know why God would do that, but it was just all a bunch of spectacle, right? And so my friend's father, he sat down with us and said, why do y'all want to go to this? And we were like, because God is moving. And of course, we had been convinced just the same way most people are convinced by bullshit. None of us had seen any of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? But other people had told the story so compellingly that we were convinced that it was happening, convinced enough to want to spend money to put in gas, to travel, to get a hotel just to be in that room so we could say we witnessed it. All right? Which means one of the things we were automatically biased to is the possibility that someone could be, number one, making it all up, or number two, making it all happen. We had already excluded those as possibilities, which shows that we had a critical thinking flaw to begin with. Nothing had ever been presented. No. So my friend's father, who is still a Christian, by the way, but he actually gave us some of the best advice. Now, my friend did not take that advice. He still stayed out there on the deep end. But that advice, his advice he gives me, the advice he gave, it made a lot of sense to me. And that was because I was still a believer at the time. He says, why would God do that? What? No, why would God just sprinkle gold dust from the sky and then there's never anything that people can do with it? Huh. Yeah. Why would God show poor people rubies and then take it away? Oh. And I never thought about things like that. And so then, absolutely, absolutely. Soldier Kid 444. I was gonna say absolutely brother, but I don't know if you brother, sister. So I don't want to offend nobody, even though I'm really good at it. I am really good at offending people. Yeah, but that's a whole nother story. But he said, like, why? And then what that challenged me to do from that point on, and again, even his rationale at that moment wasn't based in critical thinking. Well, I can't say that. It was based in critical inquiry. It was based in critical engagement. It wasn't based in logic, right? So even his approach wasn't based in logic, but it got me somewhere that I'd never given myself freedom to get to prior to that moment. And that was the question of utility, right? And it's ultimately the question of utility that led to my disbelief in God. And I think I've made a few videos on that. Like, I don't believe in anything like a God at all. Number one, just because I realized, oh, it has no utility. Nope. The further you strip God away from the natural world, after a while, that your idea of God is so far removed from humans that it doesn't make a difference if it lives or if it exists or doesn't exist. And that's what we see in the real world, that there's no utility of it. So, like, what would be the utility of gold dust? And so that's my thing. Like, yeah, what's the utility of ghost? Like, I always hear of ghost stories. I used to tell ghost stories. I used to tell people I had seen ghosts. That there were times I was convinced that I had had a ghostly vision. But then I started understanding how the human mind works. And I was like, oh yeah, that's, well, damn, And so when people ask me questions like that, and the reason I do respond with a little huff is because I want us as a species to correct our own disingenuousness, right? So when people say, like, well, how do you explain ghosts? It ain't my obligation to explain it. If you believe it, you explain it. You see how that works? And what I mean there, and that's not a dig. What I'm saying is, what I'm encouraging people to do, and y'all have heard me say it a lot, is that no, if you're seriously interested about answering that question, then actually study the subjects that would be aligned with that question, the real ones. That's one thing I started getting on my friends about for a while. That's why I started losing friends, because I'm sitting there and they're like, man, there's aliens and they're controlling the government and they're doing this, and would spend like hours talking about it. And I'm like some people treat that stuff as good faith. I don't. There are some people who have these questions that are good faith. My question to them was, if you sincerely believe this, what are you doing about it? Huh? No. Is your biggest flex is that you just knew about it, but you ain't gonna do a damn thing about it? Like, what? Like, no, that makes you useless. Like, stop it. Don't do that to yourself. And the truth of the matter is, many times, these aren't even subjects we actually care about. It's just mental masturbation. Like, that's how I am about the belief in the afterlife. Whether I believe in the afterlife or not won't change it. It has no utility. What I can say is that I was in my mother's womb for roughly 9 months. Roughly 9 months. I don't remember a damn thing. Not one bit. Not a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Not nothing. I was in my father's testicles, presumably for longer than that. And I don't remember nothing from there either. And then, wherever I was before that, I don't remember anything. So me believing in something that I can't verify is a waste of my damn time. Wasting my time. Which means, and I'm not just saying it's a waste of my time because my time is precious. Let me correct that. It's a waste of time, period. And so that's why I would get frustrated with my friends. I'm like, so you just believe in aliens? You believe aliens control the government for no reason. And I was like, what do you mean by that? Well, I mean, like, you believe it, and that's fine. That's your prerogative. But you hold this belief for no reason. Not necessarily that reason didn't get you to the belief, like, because damn sure reason didn't get you there. Okay. Rabbit trails did. Okay. Reddit got you there, not reason. Okay. But it's also you believe it for no reason, which means you've adopted this belief and you've obsessed over this belief, but other than talking about it, it doesn't impact your life in any other way. Your yesterday don't change from your today, you know? And it's like that is probably one of the major leading contributors to the crisis of intelligence that we're experiencing as a species. Is that most people are wasting their time talking about things that they don't even care about. It's like, no, you don't care enough about this to even do anything about it. So even if there was aliens who had taken over the White House, which I couldn't make a joke there. Even if there were aliens, let's just go ahead and agree that it ain't gonna be your job to fix it. Let's do that. Let's just go ahead and be real honest and say you ain't gonna be the one in there rolling in there. Damn, can't get my words out. Rolling in there like Rambo on Predator. And I know that wasn't his name on Predator, but I don't know his name on Predator because I didn't like the Predator movies. Okay. You know, yeah, it doesn't, like, after life, death. You know, see, I was gonna make the joke. And so, dang, I spent a lot of time in that one question. but am I looking at the world as it is? That's how we got here. Am I looking at the world as it is? Not how I think it should be. All right. And that the seventh question. No. We ain't. Dang. Is there any evidence? Oh, this was a big one. Oh yeah, we were talking about the afterlife stuff, the after party. When I think of the afterlife, oh, here it is. Damn. Okay. And I'm gonna give this one because y'all know some of my answers come out of frustration, and I'm honest about that. I love you with my whole heart, but me loving you don't stop me from being frustrated with the state of the world. But when I think about the afterlife, what I honestly think, and this is how I approach any question that I don't have the answer to. I don't pretend to. Period. And I don't pretend to have the need to. Right? See that's that residue of religion. No, I need to know that there's a heaven or a hell. Well, see, you only need to know that there's a heaven or a hell in order to believe the bullshit that the pastor is saying. All of this stuff is backwards as hell, So for me, the most honest approach is, and this is for me, when I say what my most honest approach is, that's dealing with me as an individual. Your most honest approach may be different, and that is still valid. But for me, the most honest approach when it comes to the afterlife is, I do not know. I have no way of interrogating it. So anything I say about it wouldn't be a belief, it would be a lie. See, because the one thing you know for sure, if there is no way to interrogate it, then there's not even a way to try. I didn't mean to rhyme, but damn, if there isn't a way to interrogate it, there isn't even a way to try to understand it. So anything that I'm saying is automatically a lie. I may not call it a lie. I may call it faith. I may call it my best guess, but I don't have the qualifications to make the guess. The prerequisites to be able to have a conversation about it do not exist. And that was one of the things that I came to, like, when I was a pastor. As a pastor, dealing with the issue of heaven or hell, I'm like, it's only a con artist that sells people tickets into a place that they've never been into themselves. That we're tolerating pseudo intelligence of the highest degree and calling it good faith. But it's like, if there are no tools to interrogate it that can be demonstrated to interrogate it, then it's not good faith. It's a scam. It's a lie. Even if you've convinced yourself that you're really, really trying to know, you know? Like, have you ever seen somebody claim that they're doing the best they can? Like, to me, that's one of the things that's wrong with many communities, is that you have a lot of parents who are like, I did the best I could. Oh, the best you could have? No. And that goes back to what I was kind of talking about earlier, is that we have so many sayings in our lives that don't have to be validated. Anytime somebody says, I did the best that I could, it's just automatically truth. Even though if we looking like, well, you know. So like, no, there's not a way to know. There's not a way to interrogate. If you really want to be the one, then be the person who invents the way over there. You know, like, yeah, the best, that was your best. Like, and you know, like, hell, since we're there, like, to me, that's one of the things that many people, especially if you come from communities where there is generational dysfunction, sometimes the best way out of that generational dysfunction is turning backwards and realizing, hey, you didn't even try, did you? Because if you don't, you're gonna make the same mistake. Living your whole life calling it your best when you ain't even got out the driveway yet. Man, don't you devalue yourself like that. And if your best is behind you, what does that say about the rest of your life? Okay, I'm gonna stop. Automatically sent people to hell. That was crazy. Oh man, which is funny because the word bloody is actually, like, that's the most accurate translation of the word blessed. Yeah, man. Like, yeah, there are things that we got, like, I'm on the Sunday sessions, I'm in this series, Falling in Love with Reason. And last week we dealt with friendships. This past Sunday we dealt with friendships. This Sunday we're dealing with kinship. We're dealing with family. And oh boy, I'm about to go there. I'm going there this Sunday. I don't know if that's a song, but I'm singing it right now like it's a hole in the wall. Let's go. Let's boogie it down. I'm sorry. I got lost in the moment for a moment. You know, that's right. You know, no, if that was your best, then what's next? Like, that was your best? Like, why is your best behind you? Like, your best should always be ahead of you, man. Yeah, man. Midweek gospel. You know. All right, so let me get through these questions, man. But this is good. This is why I like going live, because I get to talk to y'all, I get to interact. And I got my studio set up where I can actually see the chat now, so that helps. All right. Is there any evidence that what I'm doing now can get me where I want to go? And that was a big one for me, especially 2017. I tell this story so much, it's probably going to go on my, I can't even, on my tombstone, you know. But that is like 2017. My family of six of us. We were living in a single wide 2-bedroom trailer, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Half of the kitchen cabinets were gone, like half rotted out, half gone. The floorboards were so bad that I jumped in the house one time, and right, you know, I jumped because I was happy about something. I don't know what the hell I had to be happy about in that trailer, but I jumped because I was happy about something and went straight through the floor. And my neurospicy is going crazy at that moment because I can feel all the outside stuff touching me. And that's just like, what the fuck is this? and we lived in a little trailer. It wasn't even a real trailer park. It was just like there was a trailer behind us, and then there was a trailer way behind us, and then there was a house across the street from us, and an empty field right next to us. But there were meth addicts everywhere, and like we were in a financially destitute place, and that wasn't new to me. My life had seen struggles like that over and over and over again, and then I was really like frustrated, but I was in a different place than I had ever allowed myself to be before, because this is 3 years after I've deconverted. So this time, instead of just being upset that I'm not where I want to be in life, I started asking myself the hard question, like, do I have any reason to think that what I'm doing now is going to get me where I want to go? And have I even been honest about where I want to go? And have I even really been aiming? Like, that was my 2017 conversation with myself. Is there any evidence that what I'm doing now can get me where I want to go? Because the old paradigm that I lived by, I didn't need evidence. I just needed faith. I didn't like early Kirk Franklin, but there's one song that he had that, that joint spoke to me even before I got saved. Even before I got saved, it was like, I can do the impossible. I can see the invisible because I got, okay, I done went off key. Because I got faith. Yeah, yeah. And they get to the end and go, da-da-da-da-da. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. If I wanna, I can. If I wanna, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yeah, I'm a sucker for music. So if you put it in a song, you probably gonna get me to believe it. I think that's how I learned my nines. Say your nines, multiplication things. You just very fine. You put it in the song, you gonna get me, man. you gonna get me. But I had to start wrestling with that. Like, nah, is there really any evidence that what I'm doing now is gonna get me there? And it's like, okay, so what are you really frustrated for? You're getting exactly what you're aiming for. You didn't put in anything to get that. You're just mad that you're still here. Which means maybe, and this is for me, this is my story. Don't you dare try to say I'm talking about you, unless it's your story too. But which means the only person you can really be mad at, D, is you. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, people have done, people have done a lot of fucked up shit in my life. Like, man, if I sat down and told you my whole story, everybody would be wanting to cry. Okay. But ain't nobody got time for that. Right. And it ain't gonna help. It ain't gonna help. I used to love it when people cried about my story. Now I'm like, what you crying for? It didn't happen to you. Your tears ain't gonna help me. I'm not that cold-blooded, but that's what I be thinking in my head. But no, it's like, nah, bro, it's me. It's me. Oh, the declaration of faith. That sounds like one of them word of faith churches. Was it one of the things? I am the head and not the tail, the lender and not the borrower, above only and never beneath. No weapon shall of no. I can't even say it no more. I've been out of it for so long. Oh no, it was a synod. Okay, yeah, nope. I already know what that is. That's the least exciting version. But no, that's what I had to deal with. Like, oh, bro, like I had got good at blaming the devil. I had got good at blaming God's timing. I had gotten really good at blaming my sin and my ego. And like all of these things had gotten in the way. And that's really why I wasn't, where I wanted to be financially, why my family wasn't doing well financially. It was all of these spiritual reasons. But then once I was able to separate from the spiritual illusion, once I was able to separate from that, then it was just like, oh, D, you actually been sitting here not doing anything that's gonna get you where you're trying to go. Like if you do research on 1,000 people who are currently doing what you want to be doing, none of them got there doing the bullshit you doing right now. Oh shit. That was a harsh reality. All right. Which led me to my second one. I mean, not my second one, but the next one. Am I learning things that actually help me? And this is why, like, I go so hard on questions. And this is why I don't take a lot of deconstruction questions a lot. Cause like y'all, I ain't got no chill. Like, you gotta take your deconstruction questions to Forrest Valkai. Cause he gonna be all nice and stuff. You know, I'm gonna talk to you like the fool you are until the wise person in you shows up. You see how I made it sound like it's old folk wisdom like that? Like I like doing stuff like that. But no, am I learning things that actually help? All right. So sitting there in 2017, I realized, like, D, you done learned a lot, bro. You know so much about scripture. You know so much about Paul. Man, you know so much about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and Joseph. Oh, you know so much about Adam and Eve and their children. How does any of that help you? Ooh, bro, you know so many songs. Dude, don't get me started on movies and television shows. I mean, how far you want to go back? Like, we can go back to the Flintstones and the Jetsons, the Hanna-Barbera era. We can go there. We can go there. But I ask myself, like, no, out of all of the things, out of all of the information that you're exposed, leap of faith, yes. Is that the one with Ben Stiller? And I can't remember but it's like a Catholic priest and another guy. I'm kind of remembering it. I love movies. I was a latchkey kid. Latchkey kid. But it was like in all of the information that you're exposing yourself to on a regular basis, Darante LaMar Martin, how much of that information is actually helping you do what you want to do in your life? It's the one about the faith healer. Is that the one with Steve Martin? That might be the one with Steve Martin. Because now that one was actually like there's so many, because then there's the apostle that's in that same category. That one might be the one with Steve. The Carol Burnett show was legendary. Did y'all know she did a cameo on Law and Order SVU with the dude who played not Scooby-Doo, but the dude who played Shaggy? I cannot remember his name right now. I know he has a name, but he was the best Shaggy I've ever seen as in the live action one. But he played Shaggy, but him and Carol Burnett did a cameo on SVU. And damn, if you like that kind of foolishness, it was an incredible episode. Okay. So yeah, am I learning things that actually help? And I realized, like, the percentage of things that I was learning that could help my life in any type of way since I had been in middle school had dropped drastically. I was becoming more and more and more engulfed in bullshit in my life. It was easy to do. And like, I remember the moment that I realized Matt something. Yes, dude that played in Scream. Best Shaggy ever. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. But it was like, yeah, like Darante, like, and I'm not saying I've gotten to the place where, like, I don't watch anything that isn't helpful. But I do try to make sure in the diet of my life, I try to make sure that at least the majority of information that's coming in can help. And that if I'm gonna be watching something that's not necessarily helpful, I need to be able to frame that motherfucker as helpful. Now that's just me because I'm hyper productive, you know. But am I learning things that actually help? And I told you, I remember when I'm sitting there watching a mermaid documentary like in 2013. This is when I first realized I had a problem with believing bullshit. Like a year later, I became an atheist. But I was sitting there watching a documentary. Matthew Lillard, that's the name. Thank you. Much respect to Matthew Lillard. Yes. But I was sitting there watching a documentary about mermaids, and they were proposing the aquatic ape theory. And for the first time in my life, boy, I was hook, line, and sinker. And I say for the first time, obviously not. But I'm sitting there watching this documentary. Hey, Google, all's fair in the world, man. Google is Google is the real capital G. You know what I'm saying? But no, I'm watching it, and they proposed the aquatic ape theory. And by the end of the documentary, I am sitting there 100% convinced that everything that I just watched is the truth. Okay? That is an epistemic problem. That's a huge problem with my epistemic behavior at that moment. I just watched an hour and 30-minute documentary, and now I believe in mermaids. That's how religion had shaped me to approach the world. And I sincerely believed that they were using that. I sincerely believe that these people were telling me the truth, and that this was all this was in good faith. So for 5 whole minutes, I firmly believed that I had just watched a serious documentary, and it had persuaded me that mermaids existed and that they evolved as a counterpart of apes up until the moment the fucking credits start rolling, and I'm watching it, and it says, Dr. such and such, played by this actor. Lieutenant such and such, played by this actor. And that moment, I started to feel like pretty dumb. I was like, wait a minute. And so I started to feel a little fragile because I'm like, these are just actors. And so I was looking, I was hoping. I watched the whole credits waiting for it to say based in a true story, waiting for it to say actors' portrayals of real events. Never happened. None of the documentary was actually based in real life. It was very easy to verify that that's not even what it was created for. And that's when I realized, Darante, you fundamentally have a problem. Those people didn't convince you. You just believed it. You didn't follow the process of reason to get to the conclusion. You listened to a presentation and accepted it as the truth. But if you watch the video I did yesterday, that's what the book of Acts had kind of trained into me. That knowing the truth is not based off of what you understand. It's not based off of a process that you test. Knowing the truth is solely based on hearing a presentation that convinces you. Because that's the whole book of Acts. The whole book of Acts, evidence, reason is replaced with spectacle. It's replaced with preaching. If you don't believe in Jesus now, just wait till I get finished preaching this sermon. How is a sermon evidence? How is a documentary evidence? It's not. Even if it was a good faith documentary, it still wouldn't be evidence. And so, that's my problem. That's my problem. They could get away with not saying it right. And then the last one, my last question was, have I actually been trying? These are the 7 questions I'd ask myself. Is my approach to life based in evidence or reason? Is my response to life based in evidence? Am I skewing my perspective negative or positive? Am I clearly looking at the world as it is, not as I think it should be? Because I don't even have the right to define what should be is for the world, because I have not seen enough of it. And so that comes from my former superstitions of believing that I already had a God's eye view of the world. So I didn't even need to try to understand other people to better understand my world. Christianity had already given me the understanding, and I was supposed to not lean into my own understanding, but in all of my ways acknowledge God. Do you see how that becomes problematic? Is there any evidence that what I'm doing now can get me where I want to go? Am I learning things that actually help? And have I actually been trying? Right? So now check this out. Most of everything that I need to get to where I want to go in life, most of those things I can do myself. And I'm not saying that's the best way. I'm not saying that's the best way. What I'm saying is I spent time learning things that actually help. Right? So after that 2017 revelation, I taught myself how to program, how to code. You know, after that, I got my project management certificate. I got really focused on taking micro courses and learning things that actually help. And that was helpful because it also helped me navigate what was necessary and what wasn't, which a lot of scam artists live in trying to tell you what you need. And it's like, damn, if you just read it for yourself, you'll realize you're listening to a dumbass. And that's what it was for me. Like, once I realized coming out of Christianity that, D, you believed a lot of bullshit. Like, the second part of that was like, that means you followed a lot of people who believed a lot of bullshit. Like, D, you've been living your life based off of the opinion of dumbasses, bruh. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to do that anymore. I can't do that. And the only way not to do that is to become responsible for my life. The only way not to do that is to stop outsourcing reason. I can't let anybody else give me the reason. I need to have the reason for myself. I'm preaching now. You gotta have it for yourself. And so, am I learning things that actually help? And have I actually been trying? Have I actually been trying? So, and basically what that was me building a reality-based kind of vision audit of my life, a way to keep my goals inspirational without letting them drift and get lost to magical thinking. It's like, yeah, D, because if you believed in a God, bro, you believed in magic. And so, and like, we're about to go deep for a moment. Bro, you've been believing your family is going to magically love you one day instead of just paying attention to the writing on the wall. Mm-hmm. You've been believing that people are just going to magically support you instead of paying attention to the writing on the wall. And I remember having to wrestle with that, because then I had to sit with just a depressing moment. It was like, well, wait a minute. What if nobody shows up to support me? You know, that was frightening to me. I was terrified for 5 minutes of thinking of that. Like, what if nobody shows up to support me? What if nobody ever supports me? And then that's when the answer came through. Is supporting yourself not an option? Huh? Yeah. Is supporting yourself not an option? What you mean supporting myself? I shouldn't have to support myself. You shouldn't have to? By whose definition? By what standard? What reason in your life got you there? Like, what evidence in your life told you shouldn't have to do this? Like, this is probably something you should have started a long time ago. These are the conversations I had with myself. You know what I'm saying? I know that's right. Start a business and you will quickly find out who your family is. Sunday's talk, I'm telling you, is called Are We Related or Not? Oh, we're going to talk. That's one thing. My business, one of my definitions of family is like, if we don't do business together, we're not family. If we're not working together, we're not family. That's me. That ain't got to be nobody else's standard. That is me. But you are not my family if we're not working together. If we can't work together, how are we family? How is the standard for family lower than the standard for friendship? No, bro. No. Mm-mm. But that's me. That's me. Right? Since when are you not expected to support yourself in America? Right? Well, shoot. I was waiting, and actually many of people I know waiting for somebody else to support in order to feel like we were worthy of it. And then I finally dealt with the hard question. I finally dealt with the hard question. Darante, what if nobody ever shows up to support you? What are you going to do? Are you just going to let this be your life? Is that how you're going to let that play out? Well, no, but I can't make people support me. You're absolutely right. You can't make people support you. You're going to get that out your head. Are you being a colorist? That's hilarious. Nobody wants to help. And then when you make it, they all want to take the credit. That's for damn sure. You have no idea how many people I offered to come on this ride with me. No idea. It's like, nah, man. All right. So, and what I'm testing this is basically, am I seeing clearly? That's the thing. Like after sitting watching that mermaid thing and then catching myself believing that, and then after deconstructing and realizing that for nearly 3 decades of my life, I had been actively believing bullshit, and it had resulted in me not doing things in my own best interest. It had resulted in me living against my own best interest and calling it good. Look, God helps who helps themselves. Man. It's like that was man. And so am I seeing clearly became the biggest question. It's like I don't want to go back there. I don't ever want to be in that place where I'm that easily fooled, where I'm that easily deceived. Where like, because for me, it's like, dude, you spent nearly 3 decades of your life in this. And you saw all the signs that it was bullshit and ignored it. Which means like you are really good at ignoring bullshit. It's gonna take some time. You're really good at ignoring the signs. You're really good at just driving right past those red flags like they're mile markers. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, no, bro, this is a construction zone. You about to kill yourself up here. These ain't mile markers. The road is about to end. And so once I realized that about myself, it's like, no, it's my responsibility not to be a person who believes bullshit. That's my responsibility. If someone can tell me a lie and I believe it without verification, they are not the problem. I am. And this is ultimately what kind of became a problem with me with American education and American politics. The goal is to just have the right person in the top instead of making better people all around. They're like, we scared because if you give the wrong person the microphone, everybody gonna believe him. That is not a flex. Like at that moment, that's a national crisis. If that's a reality in our country, and it is, if it's a reality in our country that anybody with a microphone can convince anybody of anything, then we don't need to be putting all our focus on the people with the microphone. We need to be putting our focus on everybody else because we're stupid. We have to reevaluate how we approach education if this is the result of the current educational system. You see what I'm saying? Hey. And ignoring, man, I was so good at it. Oh, I was so good at it. And people would want you to believe that that is just, oh, that only affects your religion. The hell it does. It affects everything about your life. At least it did for me. It impacted how I engage relationships with other people. It led me to tolerate abuse over and over and over again because I had a spiritual obligation to submit. You know what I'm saying? Oh my goodness. Whew. Man, that's a long one. Oh, is that a song? I can't see it. I'm gonna have to switch to my other view. Ay. Oh, thank you for the super sticker. I didn't even see that, man. I love it. I love it. I appreciate that so much. Okay, why do we burn bridges instead of building them? Why do we light the matches just to watch it dim? We could heal, we could feel, but we turn away instead. Why do we burn bridges instead of building them? Oh, I am not mad at that. I love that. I love that. And I don't know if y'all know, I like neo soul. I like all music, really. I like neo soul. I like country. I wrote my first country song like when I was in, I think it was right after I graduated high school. And I remember I found myself sleeping outside in the back of my Ford Escort, lost everything, and I got my bride. And I was just going off, but I love music. Anyway, anyway, I wanted to stop to read that because I like stuff like that. But yeah, so like, am I seeing clearly? That's the big point here. That's where these questions come from. Am I seeing clearly? And am I acting in ways that actually work? You know, was that the rock version? I think that was the hard rock version of Friend Again. And that will be available on Spotify and all streaming platforms very, very soon. Bridge City Music is doing great things. I mean, it's really just me right now, but yeah, I'm doing all the writing anyway. But you'll see. You'll see. And the reason I'm doing it this way, and it's just for anybody who got any questions, the reason I'm doing it this way, because like we're a global community. We have people literally everywhere. We're not able to be in the rooms with each other yet. We're not able to like, and there are apps that we can do some things. And so that's coming. And we don't have people to take the charge of our music initiatives yet. But I got all of these songs that I'm writing. And so I'm writing them and I'm producing them at scale and releasing them so that our Bridge City family, our Bridge City members, hell, our Bridge City citizens can get a real vision of what Bridge City music can be like, feel like, and be for us. And like Sundays, you're now getting to see that in real time. You're now getting to see that in real time. And I love it. Like this is, you know, if there's anything that I miss about being active as a pastor was how active I got to be in the music world. You know, like that was amazing. And when I say music world, I'm not talking about being at the Grammys and stuff like that. I'm talking about being with musicians and singers and performers and dancers and poets. And man, like it's amazing. Like I want that back. I love that. And so that's why I never stopped writing music. So I'm still writing. And now I'm just taking all of the things that I wrote and putting them out there, you know, again, which kind of takes us right back in here. I'm doing things that actually work. Ford Escort. It was, watch this. Ford Escort was actually my second car. Grammys are overrated, like real talk. Ford Escort was my second car. My first car was a Ford Mustang. It was going to be a Geo Metro. It was going to be a Geo Metro. You know what I'm saying? And that didn't work out right. And then I got a Ford Mustang, but I only had it for like 3 weeks because it was a stick shift. My first 3 cars. Actually, I did have the Geo Metro for a week. I just had to take it back. My first 3 cars were all stick shift. And my second one was a Ford Mustang. And before you be like, oh man, he had a Mustang. It was a hatchback. It was from the 80s, the worst year for Mustangs. It was an 80s. I think they got better like at 88, but no. Actually, I think mine was an 88, but it was ugly. It was a hatch. It was something in the 80s. And it was a hatchback. And I don't remember only because I blew out the clutch and blew out the engine within like 4 weeks. It happened on a date. We were on the way to Applebee's and the car broke down on the way to Applebee's. You know how embarrassing it is to be on a date and your engine catches on fire. And then you got to walk to Applebee's and hope that somebody answers the phone to pick you and your date up after Applebee's. It was not a great date. Actually, it ended up still being a nice date. All right. So, but yeah, that was my first one. I've had some ugly cars. And then I had the Ford Escort. And then I had the actually, her and I had got engaged shortly after that, but we did not stay. We did not stay there that way. I had a Chevy Previa. I don't know if y'all have ever seen those, but they look like a van straight out of the Jetsons. It is so weird. But yeah, so it was, am I seeing clearly and am I acting in ways that actually work? And so it's a set of, for me, those questions were about epistemic and behavioral integrity. That's what I need. That's what I realized that I needed to fix in my life. I needed to fix my epistemic integrity and my behavioral integrity, which basically means that my understanding of the world at the time and my engagement with it was not based in logic. And I needed to fix that, and that was actually major for me. It was life-changing. Again, I was able to lose 400 pounds, change the financial trajectory of my family. And I can't take all the credit for that because me and my wife were going through this process at the same time, but change the financial trajectory of my family. And I mean, in major ways. My son, I was the first Martin in my family to graduate from college. My oldest son is going to be the first Martin to go to college on a full ride. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, your boy feels good about that. Yep, I had to learn, man, them stick shifts. And my family sucks so badly they wouldn't teach me how to drive. Like, my first 3 vehicles came from the churches I was serving. There were people at church who saw me walking to church and being faithful and always being there, who cared more about me having a vehicle than my family did. It was people in church who actually taught me how to drive. It was people in church who actually took me to get my driver's license because my family sucked horribly. Like, I can't make that shit up. Like, if it wasn't the truth, I'd be a different person probably, but it was the truth. Like, my first 3 vehicles came from church people. All of them gifted to me. Every single one of them. I know I would have been a scrub, right? Gifted to me. Every single one of them. Free. And my family hated me for it because they wanted me to struggle without a car. This is when I'm in high school. I'm a kid. But I don't know, like, you grow up smart in a family of people who don't like smart stuff, then they always feel like they got to punish you for being smart. So anytime, see, look at that. He got book smarts, but he ain't got no street smarts. Hell, okay, I'm not going to say that. Otherwise, I'm not going to turn this live into me venting about my family. I am not going to do that, but y'all almost got me there. You're right. The struggle is real. Bruh. Oh, man. But now my church families, man, they taught me how to drive, and it wasn't necessarily people in leadership all the time. It was just other people who just so happened to be in the building. And when I do work with with Bridge City, that's one of the things I remind people of, that one of the small benefits of church that people often forget is that you don't never have to move by yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, as long as I was a pastor, nobody in my church, they didn't have to be a member. If they were just coming to church and they were moving, it was always going to be a church project. We all call a few people in and just say, hey, let's all go and let's do some, let's help them move their stuff. That's fun. Like that's actually a nice benefit to have. That is a flex. Okay. Uh, Thank you. I'm doing incredibly well. I hope you're doing well as well. Well as well. Does that work? Does that work? Oh yeah, I get it. Where the church was more his family than his biological family. That's one of the reasons I identify with Jesus so much. Um, I identify with Jesus and Paul more closely than Jesus, Paul, and David more closely than any other characters in the Bible, because the one thing that they all kind of shared in common is that they were really kind of mistreated, or at least portrayed as mistreated by their families. Paul, not so much family, but you know what I'm saying. Absolutely glad you made it in, Wayne. But Jesus would say stuff like, "Who is my mother and father but those that do the will of my father?" Or, "Who is my mother and brothers but those that do the will of my father?" And like, I had dealt with so much family dysfunction and trauma that by the time I got fully saved and fully committed, is it became extremely natural for me to lean more into my church family for my biological than my biological family, because my biological family had never felt natural for me. Number one, it never felt mutual. It always felt like a one-sided relationship, which they and and to be clear, I'm not blaming them. I'm saying that's what it was. There's a lot of things that go into it that make it can't be oversimplified. They are who they are for a reason. You know what I'm saying? But I don't have to live with it just because there's a reason for it. I don't have to tolerate it just because there's a reason for it. I can determine that, hey, the way my wiring works, that's not healthy for me to be a part of. I'm like Fantasia Barrino. If you don't want me, then don't talk to me. I get really confused when people want to be in my space who don't like me. Like, how you don't like me, but you want to be in my space. How you disapprove of everything that I do, but you're constantly in my face. Mm-mm. Backstabbers, smile in your face, always trying to take your place. Get out of here. I don't do that. I'm one of those people. I'm like, no, use your autonomy and get the fuck away. Exactly. And if y'all know, I'm hypersensitive about that type of behavior. Like, I don't like that. I don't like that. And that's what I felt like. I felt like my family has been trolling me my whole life. And I was like, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to pretend anymore. If you don't like me, don't pretend to like me. I'm not going to hold that as a requirement against you. I'm not going to, that's not, you don't have to like me just because I was born into the family that you were born into. Get the fuck on, fuck off. We're good, you know? And I can say that in all love and still see you on the street, hug your neck, and just be like, "What's up, cuzzo?" And just keep walking, you know? Do all of that. We don't have to torture each other. But a lot of that came out of kind of like getting to this place of saying, like, I'm no longer going to live in a way that's not productive for me anymore. So I'm really good at telling people to fuck off. And remember, I've been telling y'all that about me since day one. I've told y'all, don't put me on your pedestal. I will kick that motherfucker down. I don't want to be on your pedestal. Nobody gets to put me anywhere I don't want to be. Period. Well, just Darante, I just thought you was this type of person. What the fuck your thoughts got to do with me? So that sounds like a personal problem. And I mean that in love. I do. But it comes from these type of questions, you know? I can break these up into different categories. It's evidence over anecdote, evidence over folk tales, evidence over superstition. Do I have any evidence that this relationship is beneficial for either of us? And if I don't feel any reason to hold on to it. Because it's not like not being in relationship with you is sending you to hell. It's not like not being in relationship with you is kicking you off the earth. So I don't owe you relationship with me. Oh man, I don't owe you that. Yeah, exactly. If you don't like me, that's a you problem. I love me. Oh my, I have so much fun with me. And I just snatched my thing out. That's how much fun I got. I be having so much fun. I just snatch my thing out at any given moment. I couldn't help it. The joke came, it passed, but I had to make it do what it do. Anyway, no, I have fun with myself. Snatch that thing out. See, I can't stop it because now it's been said, and now my neurospicy is just going to be replaying it in my head. Dang it! I didn't mean to rhyme, but I did. All right, so man, yes. A friend always pushing his political views in our conversations was a deal breaker of a nearly 20-year-old friendship. That's right. I am not about to be your project. I ain't signing up to be nobody's project. You're not about to be in a relationship with me trying to change who I've chosen to be to who you'd prefer me to be. I don't exist for your preferences. This ain't House Hunters. You can't just come in my life and talk about you don't like the color of my kitchen. Fuck you. This ain't your kitchen. But no, I really think they should have painted this blue. Bitch, you wasn't here. Sorry. Not sorry. No. Mm-mm. And honestly, I am so resistant against that type of behavior because like I had to get on myself about that. Like one of the things that I did as a pastor is like the people who used to be on my staff that are still in my life. There's not a lot, but there's a few that hang on that are still in my life. People used to be on my staff when I was their pastor. Like I've talked to them and told them like, you know what? I apologize for thinking I had a right to exercise so much control over your life. And like it wasn't even like physical control. But it was, well, in a sense, it still was physical control because, like, if I found out you were sinning, you know, I can be like, hey, you can't do this Sunday because you sinned. Like, number one, your sins ain't none of my goddamn business, bruh. Like, for real, unless you out there harming somebody, and even then, it ain't my obligation to do something about it. I got to call the right authorities to let them handle that. You know, I mess up the whole system. But no, I called them and I let them know like that was me crossing the line. Now my religion gave me permission to do it, but that don't make it right. Like I held so much authority in other people's lives that it wasn't just unhealthy for them, it was unhealthy for me too. You know what I'm saying? Like no, that was too much pressure for me. Thinking because you know that's the trick in Christianity that if I don't guide you and I don't tell you what to do, then your blood is on my hands. And I'm like, but ain't no blood, bruh. He just fucking somebody. That's not blood. And I damn sure don't want that on my hands. Hello. Man. Bullied by them. They go out of their way just to rub them. Yeah, man. Good people don't need a good book to be good people. They don't. You know? I've been saying you know a lot. All right, so let me wrap this up. I've been here an hour and 38 minutes, and Wednesdays are the days that I write, so I do got to get back to writing. But I've been enjoying this conversation so much, so I'm going to make sure I do finish it out. It's a check for me of am I actually understanding and engaging the world that I live in clearly? Am I engaging it from the place of reality? That's again evidence over anecdotes. This is how I think now. You know, is my approach to life based in evidence? Is my response to life based in evidence? Which means I don't know if you noticed about your boy, but I am not a bandwagoner. It's really hard to get me on a bandwagon because bandwagons offer a lot of things. They rarely offer evidence. It's often emotional hype, you know. And I'm just like, I got things I'd rather be emotionally hyped about. So my question to myself becomes like, do I make decisions from patterns and proofs or from isolated stories, impulses, and feelings that feel true? You know, And it's not that I ignore my feelings. That's not the point. But I can't pretend that feelings are facts. They're not the same thing. Billy Joel, I like that. I guess it's not the same thing. I can feel very strongly about a thing and still be absolutely wrong because feelings are not facts. You know, I'm constantly trying to do a perspective calibration, which is how I interpret the world. Asking myself, am I skewing this negative or positive? Am I clearly looking at the world as it is and not as I think it should be? This is what keeps me out of fandom. It keeps me out of fanaticism. It keeps me from being radicalized. Because these are checks that I've put in my life, you know. Again, I think I gave this illustration last Wednesday because it was a real moment for me. I'm watching television and I'm going off on two celebrities' lives based off of what I've seen about them on television. And I'm like, Darante, this television has fooled you into thinking you actually know these people. And not only that you know them well enough to have a right to have an opinion on their lives and what they should be doing. And here's the kicker, they never gonna hear any of this. You are literally wasting your time gossiping to yourself. That is not a flex, bro. Like that's how I talk to me. You know? I'm like, you've convinced yourself that you know stuff that you don't know. And it's like, and to be honest, it's stuff that you wouldn't even try to know if you had access to know. Like if someone just dropped $100 million on you right now, would you want to go hire a private eye to follow T.I. and Tiny so you can know whether they're compatible for each other? How would that make your life better? All right, that's when I was doing the hard work on me. It's like, bruh, this might be one of the reasons you broke. You wasting your time on bullshit, homie. Like out of all of the things you could be doing with your time, you watching this show and being mad about people you don't know. And you the one chosen to watch it. These are not things smart people do, my brother. That's how I talk to myself. You know? Started getting very clear. Am I being distorted right now? And again, whether that's on the pessimistic side or optimistic side, everything is terrible. Are you sure? Everything? It all works out somehow. All the time? I don't know about that. And I don't need it to, you know? I only needed it to work out all the time when I felt like I was being judged based off of the parameters of whether it worked or not. When I lived in in the world, in the paradigm where if it worked, that means God wanted it, that's when it mattered. That's when I needed it to always work. To me, that is no longer a need, nor is it an expectation, because the root of that need is superstition. I have no evidence, no reason to believe that anything should always work. So I have an expectation that sometimes things won't work. I don't need them to always work anymore. I don't feel like that makes me a negative person. You know? The goal here is clear-eyed realism, hope with accuracy, you know? And then there's the trajectory questions, which is there any evidence that what I'm doing right now can get me where I'm trying to go? So anytime I'm upset with where I am in life, as opposed to where I want to be, and mind you, according to me, now you do you, but me, I am the largest influence on where I am and where I want to be. I get to choose where I want to be, and it's my choices largely that have led me to where I am within my spectrum of control and influence. Right? So then it's if I'm in a place in life and I'm like, I don't want to be here, I no longer have the expectation of poof, overnight, something's going to happen and I'm not going to be here anymore. If I'm in a place in life and I'm saying, nope, I'm disappointed with this, I don't like this, tacos, I like that. I don't, I don't like this. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want my life to be stuck right here. Then for me, there's nobody else that I know of who has a greater impact on doing something about that than me. Sure, can people come along and support? Absolutely. Sure, can someone come along and open a door that I'm just like, what? That door? You gonna open that one for real? Sure. But by far and large, I can't depend on any of those things. I love internal thoughts. Mine be going, psh, psh, man. No, my intrusive thoughts are the worst though. Like, bruh, until I found out that intrusive thoughts was actually a word, I was worried about myself. It's like, bruh, why is it that every time you drive over a bridge, you're thinking, what'll happen if I just drive right off of this motherfucker right now? And it's not even a depressive thought. It's more like an experiment. You just want to see what happened. I don't do it, but the thought is there. It's like being on a ledge, which if you're ever around me, I don't go to ledges. Like girls, why you don't go to ledges? Because my intrusive thoughts are very compelling. I don't know if y'all have ever heard me talk before, but this dude is even more smooth. Hence Bridge City. Damn, I didn't catch it. But his voice is even more compelling in my head. And so standing on ledges is like, bro, what if you jumped and you just flew right now? Like, no, don't, that voice. I was just curious. I just wanted to see what was going to happen. That's them intrusive thoughts, right? I need to do a whole Sunday session series on intrusive thoughts because they're fun to have. I believe I can fly. And then my intrusive thoughts are not always just about like what'll happen if I do this, but it's also like what would I do if this happened? Like trying to imagine myself in certain scenarios, which I do have a lot of dreams. I do have recurring dreams lately. Probably the past 2 years, I've been having recurring dreams about driving off of something, like not on purpose, but like just driving and then the road disappears. And now in the whole dream, I'm sitting here like, all right, let me get myself together because we about to hit the water. And then I don't know if I'm going to survive, but I got to try. I'm trying to think it through. Trying not to lose his head. Hey, you already know. I mean, one time me and my friend was driving somewhere, and I said, man, what would you do if a pothole just opened up in the road right while we were driving right now? And like, that's intrusive thoughts. You've been living in, and if you don't want to see me again, I would understand. I know it, right? Don't get me close to the ledge. Up in here. Y'all are too much. But yeah, so it's trajectory. If I'm somewhere that I don't want to be, if I don't like how life is going, and y'all know I went through my, I was a Black nationalist. That's where a lot of this stuff was unpacking it. I ran a lot of projects, did a lot of programs, and I was like, wait a minute. At some point, and this was my perspective again. I don't feel the need for everybody to share my perspective. You don't share my experience, right? I don't share your experience, but my perspective became like, hold up, what are we doing to get us where we want to go? And that's literally for me as a way of living life and approaching life. If I'm doing anything, it needs to be something that helps me get to where I'm trying to go, right? And so if I'm not where I want to be, is there any evidence that what I'm doing can actually get me there? Do I have a statistical norm that I can depend on? That I can say, at least 60% of the people who tried this get there. If I don't have any of that, what am I basing this in? Am I learning things that actually help me get there? Am I learning things? And the hard one, have you actually been trying, Or is it the trying like I did my best? Well, we all know that that's like coded language for that's all you're going to get from me. That doesn't actually mean I tried. It means what you saw is all you're going to get. And that's not a flex. And so that's what I started asking myself, like, Darante, are you really trying? And this wasn't about like calling myself lazy or anything like that. It was understanding that I had been operating off of bad logic for so long that I likely wouldn't even know what trying would look like. Because trying to me before meant praying really, really hard. You know, trying to me before meant fasting for 40 days, which I didn't, I'll try to. Once I left that paradigm, it became painfully obvious why my life was where it was. Because that question right there, have I actually been trying? No, bruh. Like to explain the way I viewed it is what happened to me is like if you have a kid that looks up, to a family figure or an older person, and the kids see the older person drive, and they say, I want to drive too. You know what I'm saying? And then they say, all right, come on, I'm gonna get you over here, and they put you in your little toy thing, and they say, oh, look at that, you driving just like me. And you really ain't driving, but they just told you that, so you'd feel like you doing the same thing that they doing. That's what I felt trying was for the first 30 years of my life. The first 30 years that I thought that I was trying, I was doing the things that I had been taught to do as a child because nobody had ever come along. And I'm not trying to put the blame on them, but nobody had ever come along and said, no, you're going to need real keys and you're going to need a real car. So once I come out of that paradigm, I have to wrestle with the fact that what I was doing, no matter how much energy I put into it, it wasn't trying. And so that's that question. Have I actually been trying? Do my actions have a believable cause and effect relationship to my outcome? In most cases, even people who grew up in secular homes, I realize they have a problem with this. That there is no cause and effect accountability to their outcomes. So anything that's wrong with their life is the problem of somebody so far removed from them that you can't even do anything about it. And at that moment, it's like, why would you put your problem somewhere that you can't do nothing about it at? Like that's the most, like that's disorienting. You can't do anything with that. If somebody else is the reason your life is the way it is, then they hold the power for your life. That's not a flex. And then for me, again, man, what you say, I had to look at my own life. And again, coming out of Black nationalists, I'm like, yeah, now listen, I can blame white folk for a lot of shit. Oh, I can. Historically, I can. Oh, I really can. But it would do nothing for my life. Literally. Absolutely nothing. And I'm not about to waste time figuring out which white folks to blame and which white folks not to blame. Who got time for that? And then I had to sit with a harsh truth. I got to skip over a lot of people. For me, again, nobody else's story. This is my story. You don't like it, tell your story, but you won't change mine. But for me, I'd have to skip over a lot of people who failed me to get to white folks. Nah, I have to skip over an absent father. I'd have to skip over an incompetent mother. I'd have to skip over two families of grandparents who chose partying over productivity. Oh, no. Now, are there sociological factors that go into place in all of this? Oh, yeah, man. Oof. Yes, Jim Crow, South segregation, all of that. All that. But that's looking at the world as it is and not as it should be. And knowing that, like, once you realize what it is, you got a responsibility to kind of deal with this motherfucker, especially if you're gonna have children. And you're not gonna get sympathy from me with you not dealing with the world and you done brought children into it. You're not, as a father, you're not gonna get sympathy from me. Because that was my wake-up call. Like, if I don't make changes, my kids are gonna inherit my struggles, and I'm not gonna be able to blame anybody else for that but me. You know what I'm saying? So no, I'm not going to skip over everything that everybody got wrong. And as a matter of fact, I'm just going to start in the place that I have the most impact. And that's me. Darante, what are you doing wrong right now? Because that's where you got to control that. The best news for me in the world is I'm the problem. Man, because the moment somebody else is the problem, I can't do shit about that. I mean, nothing ethical, you know? No, if somebody else is my problem, then I am trapped in a paradox. You might as well put me in that little triangle thing that they be putting Superman's enemies in to send them to the Phantom Zone. Because I can't do nothing with that. But if you can show me, Darante, hey, maybe you the problem for still dealing with those kind of people. Bruh, damn, ooh, you right. Because I cannot change them, but I can stop myself from tolerating that bullshit like immediately. That's how quick that happens. At least it did for me. Like, no, I got things to do. Do my actions have a believable cause and effect relationship to my outcome? When I'm looking at my life saying, oh, I don't like where I am, did I do anything differently to end up anywhere other than here? Not did my favorite law get approved? You know, because it's easy to scapegoat whatever genie you pick. Whether your genie is God or your genie is government, it's easy to make other people responsible for you. And the moment you do that, it seems like you're doing the right thing, but you're just giving your power away. I don't do that. And y'all know I'm kind of an anarchist too. So what can I say? I never realized I was an anarchist. I didn't think I was, but I think I've been one my whole life. Like, I'm just an anarchist. I'm not saying anarchy should be the law of the land. I'm saying I'm an anarchist. I'm not going to follow your laws. I may adopt them as my own, but I'm not going to follow them. If I don't agree with them, it's not my law. You know, that's me. That's me. You know what I'm saying? All the damn time. You know? And in a world where other people are doing it, hey, the only safe thing is to do it too. Otherwise, they're gonna keep fucking shit up. You know, when people ask me about the state of the world today, and they're like, Darante, what do you really think about this? Honestly, I'm like, what else do you expect? It's the planet of the apes, man. It's the planet of the apes. That was the whole point of the planet of the apes. Is for us to realize and maybe even remember that we're the fucking apes. You know? I think Planet of the Apes was written, and I don't actually know why. It could have been racially motivated for all I know. But I think Planet of the Apes was written. I interpret it as a reminder to not get caught up in our own exceptionalism. You know? You think we're so much better than everything out here that we don't see our ugliness. Because that's kind of like That's the parable in the story, is that these apes are filthy, dirty animals. But the government and control that the apes are employing is no different than the structures that the humans employ. And so it is a reminder that this is indeed the planet of the apes, that this is how we treat each other. Oh, the 90s remake sucked. Oh my goodness. It really did. All right. So, dang, this has been a fun conversation. So if there's no evidence that what I'm doing, that the current path actually works, then vision is just a story. And I recalibrate. This is why I don't do what everybody else do. I do I do what I do. There's a historical record that this works in getting the outcomes that I'm interested in. And the outcomes that I'm interested in is that I want people to be fed. I want people to be housed. I want people to be able to afford medical care. And I'm not the government. I'll never be that big as one person. I'll never be that. But there are some things that I can do that can help me get in a better position, to help those that don't have it, to help those that can have it, and to help those that'll help others have it. You know? That's, if there's no current path, because those are my outcomes. I'm not looking for bad people to just stop being bad. I'm looking for good people to start being better. I don't need bad people to get better. I need good people to get better. You know? It's like expecting bad people to get better. And I want to be careful here, but I want to use this. Expecting bad people to get better is like expecting spoiled fruit to unspoil. I'm not saying people can't change. I'm not. But what I am saying is that people that you identify as bad, regardless of how bad you see them, they don't view themselves that way. And so you seeing them that way is not motivation to change them. You know? You are 100% right. US don't like that. It's like, no, what evidence do I have that what I'm doing is getting me where I'm trying to go? And if I'm learning stuff, but I'm not applying what I'm learning, I'm either learning the wrong things or I'm procrastinating. If I'm learning stuff and I'm not applying what I'm learning, that means I am learning things that I can't apply. And I have to start asking my question, well, why are you learning stuff that you can't apply? I mean, you get to choose what you're learning. Like, you're out of school, you get to choose what you're learning. Why would you waste more time learning things that you can't apply? And again, this has caveats to it. If you're satisfied with your life and you love where your life is right now, financially, relationally, emotionally, all that good just, then you waste as much time as you want, baby. You good. Waste your time all damn day, as long as you want. But for those of you who are like, no, I don't like where I am, then you probably need to change. You need to change how you budget your time then. Stop wasting it and start investing it. Start making sure. And again, there are no guarantees. There are no promises, but there are probabilities. No one can promise you that any road is going to get you exactly where you want to go, but there are probabilities. And when I shifted my perspective from promises thinking to probabilities-based thinking, it increased the likelihood, look at there, that what I was doing would lead to some area of success. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm learning something, I need to apply it. Otherwise, it's just intellectual procrastination. And that's easy to get into. Like, none of this stuff makes you a bad person or anything. We've let go of those things. We're not religious. We're not trying to find the good people out of bad people, you know? So none of these things make you a bad person. It doesn't necessarily make you lazy. These are the paradigms that we operated out of. You know, it's really easy to get into intellectual procrastination, especially if you're dealing with imposter syndrome, because you're going to always feel like you don't know enough. Even when you're learning stuff that can be applied, you'll get in that trap, or, oh, I haven't learned enough to operate on it yet. I haven't learned enough to act on it yet. And it's like, well, who gets to decide when it's enough? Like, anytime I find myself in one of those traps, I challenge it with a question. Okay, Darante, if you haven't learned enough to act on it, and in all good faith, let's just say you're right, you haven't learned enough to be able to apply this yet. What standard of measurement do you use to determine when you will have learned enough? And if you do not have that standard of measurement, how did you come to the conclusion that you had not learned enough when the standard didn't even exist yet? You got an epistemic problem. And I'm like, ooh, I'm glad I caught that. You're right. So now I need to figure out what is the standard measurement of knowing enough, knowing enough to apply this. And then you figure that out. It's like, okay, bam. So once I know this, I can get started. You know, that's what religion robs people of. It robs you of your ability to try. It robs you of your responsibility to try. I like that. Religion does you just like that little kid with a little Tonka truck. You got the little fake keys in it, and you making all the engine noises. See, it's working. Vroom, vroom. Y'all hear my car? Vroom, vroom. It's working. Ain't nobody better than my God. You see how my God moving? Boom, boom. It teaches you how to waste your time pretending instead of pursuing, so that other people can take your shit. And that's what's been happening. Other people have been taking your lunch. And some of you, you've been just giving it to them. Here, I ain't hungry. I don't need to eat. And then you wondering why you starving. You keep giving your lunch away. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go into the motivational thing, but it is what it is. Stop giving your lunch away. Stop giving up your lunch money. You need that lunch money. You live in a capitalist system. Until you've learned how to defeat that system, you're going to need your lunch money. I'm just saying, get your lunch money now. If you haven't truly been trying, the problem isn't strategy. It's honest commitment and friction tolerance. The hidden thesis behind all of this is I'm kind of trying to live by this principle. Reality is the only partner that never lies. So build the vision with reality, not against it. You know, you don't have to work against reality. Work with it. I actually had Forrest on the channel last year, I think. He and I did a conversation on hard science versus soft science. I'm a sociologist. Forrest is something with the hard sciences. I think evolutionary biology, I think, is what he was into. And so he and I did a conversation on the channel on a Sunday. I invited him on one of my Sunday sessions. We did a conversation on the channel where we talked about how science is not just informational, but how it can also be inspirational, which as a sociologist, that's what I care about. And that's where I prefer to use the language of science, is to remind people that science isn't just for the lab, it's for life. You know, I don't want to be sitting, and this is me, I don't want to be sitting in a room with people with broken lives talking about creationism. I'm like, you got bigger problems that we need. I don't want to be in a room with people with broken lives talking about the canons of scripture, the Yahweh's perspective. You know, I'm like, no, we have bigger problems. If we all sitting in here with broken life, this is sociologist in me. This is why I'm a sociologist. This is why I switched my major. Is because at the end of the day, like the hard science will make more sense to you, and you're going to have more fun with it, and you're going to get more out of it once we can get your life right. You know? And we all sit in a room with broken lives, and we're talking about everything except for our broken lives. And that's sometimes what kind of bothers me a little bit, is that I seem like, no, I don't care about how many people know how to debunk Christians. If their lives aren't getting better, that's a really like, oh nah, we've raised up, not saying anybody's doing this, but we've raised up 500 people who can debunk Christians now with the best of information. But you can debunk Christians with the best of information, but you can't use any of that information to help your life. I think that's, like, to me, that's living out of order. Let's work on your life first and your interests and hobbies second. And that's where, so we teamed up to have that conversation, to talk about, like, no, science isn't just for the lab, it's for your life. You can use a scientific method for your relationships. All right, so I'm ending it here. If I could sum it up in one line, the big idea is to embrace the clarity of reality. This is for anybody who's struggling with vision, how you see yourself, how you see others in your life, how you see what you want to do in your life. Is let's redeem it from superstition and bias, and actually place it in a place where it can be interrogated by evidence and reason. And so I can turn those 7 questions into 5 questions. What's true? What story am I telling myself about what's true? What am I doing because of what's true? What results prove that I'm on track? And if I'm not on track, what am I going to do about it? That's using logic, critical thinking, reasoning, and rationality for more than just dunking on other folk. That's using critical thinking and reasoning for your life, which should be the starting point. And that, my friends, not to be all parabolic, if you will, that's the biggest dunk on believers. You really want to make Christians rethink how they're living, how they're approaching the world? Live better. That's it. It's useful information first. It's like, if I got a bunch of people in the room, and I know we got a big problem, and I'll talk about this in tomorrow's video, the video that drops tomorrow. Again, if you're a patron or you're a YouTube member, you already have access to it. But I talk about this in that video, and that's how does this get us to where we're trying to go? If we're in a room and we know that there's a big problem out here, there's a lot of bad people doing bad things, and we have a need to try to stop that or to try to counter that. And then what we do is we get a whole bunch of people in the room, and we tell those people, it's your job to be the army. And we never ask, how many of you in here are hungry? And we never ask, how many of you in here are not sure if your lights are going to be cut on when you get home? If we never ask, how many people in here are on the verge of losing your home? Then we don't have an army. We have slaves. You have people that you can use for an agenda, but you don't care about the people aspect of who they are. And one thing that I understand is people don't do their best work if they don't feel like they're their best selves. So Bridge City doesn't exist to help people be a better counter apologist. It exists to help people be their best selves, whatever that means for them, because that's what we need. No, your goal may not be to be a YouTuber who tells, Christians off all the time. I don't know. But if you work on yourself and find out what your goal is, when someone gets kicked out of their house because their family finds out that they don't believe anymore, you might be able to be a resource for them. That's the long-term way I think about it. Fuck how right you think you are. Who can you help? And if you're not actively trying to help, it's not right to pretend like you care about people. Because there's a lot of organizations that are raising a lot of money that are not taking care of anybody. It's all spectacle. Winning battles that don't win wars. But if you want to win the war, it starts with societal transition. It doesn't happen when bad people stop being bad. It happens when good people start doing better. We've gotten so focused in nonviolent resistance that we haven't graduated to irrelevance. I don't want nonviolent resistant. I want to make bad irrelevant. And the only way you do that is to get in a position to provide what it tries to take away. Is to put yourself in a position to defend what it tries to break down. And when you study that from a sociological perspective, you will realize that that takes community. That takes community. That's right. Oh man, they love to wish you good luck, but can't offer any help while constantly begging for money. And then talking about the church for doing the same thing, but while the church is actually feeding people. The hypocrisy in the secular community has to be exposed, because that's why we're losing. You smarter than everybody else, but in your smarts, you ain't figured out a way to do food drives. In all of your smarts, you ain't figured out a way to be visible. And I'm not saying it's all of us, but I'm saying that's how the majority of others look at us. And that's just because, number one, we always have an excuse of why we can't get something done. Excuses are all too familiar to me. And we don't have to have them anymore. But you're absolutely right. It's the same type of superstition. And I'm like, no. If you really want to be able to counteract what's going on in the world, you have to be the counteractive force, not the reactive force. Counter. What does that system provide? Is anything over here providing that? When people fall on hard times, how do we catch them? Where's that safety net? We know that's a reality. Or do we only care when it's political? We don't care when it's personal. don't matter to us then. Personal don't matter, just political. And I'm like, no, ain't no excuse. We can do better. And I share content in hopes that we will. I hope this video, this conversation today, help some people look at their own lives and say, there's some places that I can start approaching this with more reason, with more rationality. Because if you don't, man, I'm gonna tell you one thing: you become really easy to manipulate. You become real easy for people to maneuver. All people got to do is put it on the news, and next thing you know, I know what you're going to be obsessed with for the next 6 weeks in your life. And in all of your obsession, you ain't gonna help a damn thing. And everybody know it except for you. You've convinced yourself that you're doing something when you're not. And how is that any different than praying? Because so many times we think religion was the problem. And I'm like, no, religion was the instrument. We were the musician. Religion was the tool. We were the craftsmen. That's how that works. Religion isn't the problem. We are. Politics isn't the problem. We are. You don't fix politics until you fix us. You don't solve religion until you solve us. Which means, there are no shortcuts. We got to face reality head on. And when we do, we're kind of better for it. Now, I can't say for anybody else, but I can say for me that I completely turned my life around, which is often what religion claims to do. The difference is you can see the evidence. You can see the pictures of me when I was overweight. You know what I'm saying? People who are close to me know what my life looked like before. And they know what it looks like now. And just to be 100% clear, YouTube didn't give me this life. I had this life before I crossed over onto YouTube. Because I was in the closet. I'm trapped in the closet. Can I say that? Am I going to be canceled because I sang that tune? I had to start making different decisions about my life. I had to start identifying excuses, no matter how comfortable they felt. And I mean, man, excuses, bro, they fit like a glove. Not that closet, And now, number one, I don't have the expectation for everything to work out. I don't have the expectation for everything to be perfect. I don't have expectations for everything to go my way. I have the trust that I'm capable of navigating, and I treat myself accordingly. So I don't live in fear of what's going on in the world. I know what world I live in, and I trust myself to navigate. That's freedom for me. That's freedom, because that means I don't have to break down every time something isn't going the way that I want it to go. All right, I'm done. I've talked too much. I said I've talked too much, and I probably said that like 30 minutes ago, but I do enjoy these conversations. I enjoy hanging with y'all. I appreciate y'all for hanging out with me. If you got any value from this conversation, if you thought this was helpful, share this stream with somebody, share this video with somebody, and let them know that, hey man, this might be helpful for you. It's damn near 3 hours, damn near 2 hours and 30 minutes of talking, but it's good for you. These type of conversations for me are very therapeutic. Let me get a lot of stuff off my chest. And they're a part of just the role I want to play in life, which is helping people give narrative to their own lives, helping people find freedom to talk about themselves and process what they're dealing with so that they can live a better life. Because that's the thing. Like, I don't want you to feel occupied. I don't want you to feel obligated to change the world until you feel able to change your life. You know, damn, I'm going to say that again. I don't want you to feel obligated to change the world until you feel able to change your life. That's where I want to start with people. That's why much of my content leans towards, here's how this impacted your ability to engage life. This is how this has impacted the way we perceive the world. This is how this affects us today, so that we can see it, have language for it, understand the narrative, and then start undoing the damage, so that we can begin to realize, like, no, humans are probably not the best thing since sliced bread, but we ain't the worst thing. Like, we're pretty, we have some things that we can do. We're record breakers, man. We continue to break records. And so it's not my choice for your life, but I would love for you to see yourself as capable. I would love for you to see yourself as influential. I would love for you to see yourself, if nothing else, as the God of your universe, the God of your world. I'd love to see that. I can't choose that for you, but I can damn sure model it. And I can do my best to create space where that's normalized, because that's when we do our best work. All of us can't do what everybody can do, but all of us can do something that we can do. And I don't get to pick that for you, but you're never going to figure out what it is if you don't get up and start trying. And if you've been living in the illusion that, like, nah, I've already tried my best, then you've already given up on your best. And I don't want to see that, because that's how we end up in the predicament that we're in the US. It's because we have an overabundance of people who do not believe in their capacity to make a difference. And it's so funny. They are informed on everything except for themselves. You know about everything and don't know anything about yourself. That's such a tragedy. It's a catastrophe, if you will. And it's unnecessary. So that's the work that I'm doing. Only in the lesser evil. But right, better is not good enough. That is, I've been frustrated with that since I was a child. Man, that lesser evil stuff. But y'all, I got to get back to writing. Otherwise, I'm going to be behind. I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today. Let me get y'all some music to close out with. Oh, we're going to do Affirmation Song, because it's officially available on Spotify and Amazon Music and iTunes and Apple Music and Tidal and Pandora, because Brit City's doing big things. You know what I'm saying? But no, I'm going to play Affirmation Song. The link is actually in the description for those of you that want to support it on streaming platforms. I love y'all, man. Until next time, keep rising. I'll let you later.
Everything that's thrown at me, I am now becoming everything I chose to be. I am now affirming greater power is in me. I am never running from my own capacity. Through